Welcome back to another video on Gearsaw Studios, and today I'm going to be showing you how to build yourself this medieval starter house. As you can see, nice pastures out front, varied design styles, we have the copper roof and the mangrove, and it's perfectly livable. Might not be your day one house, but certainly a pretty nice one that you can have for a very long time. So without further ado, let's investigate how we'd go about building this. Starting off, we need a generally flat area to live in. And you can see plains biome on a little bit of a peninsula or river island. We have the ocean over here, and it connects to the actual ocean. We have mountains in the distance, rivers inland, forests, etc. We have everything we actually need. So let's begin. Right here, we have a line of 17 stone bricks. And most of these measurements aren't crazy important, but this one is. So I recommend 17 blocks. And then we can go a little bit more in this direction. 32 is a decent amount, but remember, the longer you go, the harder it is to build. So I did 28 right there. Let's build a simple rectangle to start us off with the main building right here. And then we also need to accommodate for what direction we want to build facing. So our build, of course, needs to be focused in one direction. And right here, towards the ocean, we would have boats here. Maybe we have some villages built up later, stuff like that across this whole ring. This is a good direction to build. So let's have everything face this direction with like the golden ratio where we have big thing here, tall thing here, maybe another tall thing in the back. Stuff like that makes the build look really good, rather than you can just approach from any angle. Of course, it still needs to look good from the back, but that's just a preliminary thing. We want to make it so it's facing that way. Imagine the viewer is standing on that rock over there. And then, let's build this little foundation, and we can build up other things on the build in order to make it more interesting. Right here, I have a segment of the foundation, and you can see it's very detailed, but also kind of expensive. It includes a ton of little candles here in order to get these spikes, so let's see how we do it. First, this is our 17 block layer. We alternate between block and stair. Then, we have a bunch of walls on top, blocks behind those, but stairs behind every other one, where if there's a stair here, so that way they're not pointed, and then we put some candles here to make them appear a little bit taller. Finally, above those stairs, we place a slab. And let's see how this looks. And you can see, it's actually pretty cool looking, because the candles actually look like stone in this context. Of course, the building is very incomplete, still looks very much like my reference images, but still, we can see right here, we have a bunch of walls, a bunch of candles, and then we also have this spot for a tower here. This is going to come later, but we do need an entrance to the build. So I placed a lantern here, small staircase up made of slabs, some pale. If you don't have pale yet, that's okay, you can use another block. And then we walk into nothing. I have this pillar of diorite just to make sure that I know where the roof and such goes. And in front of here, we have a big window. Originally I wanted more windows, but I found out that it would be a very large build and wouldn't look good otherwise. So, one big window here. We're going to incorporate this better later. We can go in and place some stairs like this, so that way the window is recessed and flush with the wall on the inside, but still looking cool on the outside. And then we have these pillars of spruce. So hooray on that. Now, we need to fill in these walls completely with birch. We're going to gradient them later, but for now, birch is a very cheap, easy block. Alternatively, you could just wait for the part where I do the gradient if you're in survival mode and don't have the time to break all the walls again. Now, the walls are being filled in, and you can see a lot of work is being done, especially on the roof. And the roof is going to be very interesting. Of course, it's made of mangrove, so you might have to go on a little bit of an adventure before finishing this. Fortunately, not many things come with not having a roof, but still. We also have this tiny little one above this window, and you can see how it's all pointed up. I'm not using any stairs or slabs on this roof, well, this one in particular, because I tried doing it with the yellow concrete before, but I decided that was a bad idea. Although, I do recommend incorporating it eventually. So like this, just a few blocks here and there in order to help smooth it out. But more importantly, we can see right here we have some trapdoors. They have glowstone under them. This is a cool trick you can do. At night, you can see how it's all lit up and we don't even have a visible light source. Of course, I recommend incorporating visible light sources into your build anyways, but still. The rest of it, very dark. Sorry, mobile users, but now we know there's a problem and we can fix it pretty easily. So yeah, we have this roof style here, and here's how you want to do this. So we want to have an arch like this, and you can see very simplistic. Looks like, oh, I'm a pro builder now, but there's a little bit more to it. We're not going to go straight across. So like, let's imagine what it would look like if we were to just continue this pattern all the way. And this is a little bit too overhangy right now, but still, we have this, looks pretty good. However, here's where I can throw a wrench into the works. Imagine that this is the middle block. Now we have to accommodate the rest of the build for that, which means we can have a nice arch like this following my cursor. Like, we can have it point here, nice smooth middle, stuff like that. And that adds a lot of shape and personality to the build. So let's think of it like that. We can definitely mess with the shape. As for the actual roof, you can see here, basic slabs, trapdoors, continue this across, and just have a huge thing of mangrove planks. At the bottom here, we won't have any actual changes from that arch in the middle. This will only apply to the upper layers of the roof. So let's continue that across. Then for the windows here, I have little extra roofs above. Across the birch, we have some stairs, upside down stairs, and then some slabs between, and then some nice stripped spruce pillars. It's really coming together, but of course, it can appear really daunting at first. But if you just trust, oh, this looks good, maybe look up a few other houses, then you'll definitely end up with something really cool. A bit more work being done, we have the roof. And you can see the roof is a little bit complicated, but I can assure you, with a little bit of mangrove wood, and by a little, I mean probably half a forest, we can build this roof. First off, we have that arch, what I was talking about, and you can see lower in the middle, higher on the edges, and then we have that point outwards. Then, with some stairs, of course the roof started here, I made it go outwards to make this point. So after these few blocks, we go outward by one, and then we add a little thing almost like some sort of head going off of it. And then we have these smooth parts. I added in some extra blocks in order to have this weird arch shape right here. And you can see how this arch shape, of course it blends in with this tower that's going to come in, stuff like that. But still, it adds a bit more shapeliness to it. And then finally, I incorporated a bunch of mangrove logs into this. And now we can start working on the walls. This side it's incomplete, but you can see how we have two segments, 3 blocks wide, and then a big one in the middle, 5 blocks. So of course 27 by 17 for this build, and what do you know, it's really coming together. Incorporate some trapdoors, some upside down stairs there, then we'll be really getting something pretty. And finally, now some smooth sandstone. This will be helpful for our gradient, because you can see how these 2 blocks work together. Let's have this almost like jagged shape of sandstone on the bottom or on the top. Either one works. Potentially you want it on the top instead, so that way we can go birch, sandstone, and then something brighter. Maybe we could do pale, maybe that's a bit too bright. You could do sand, you'd need a lot of string for that. But still, let's think of it in those terms. Let's have a gradient across this build to make it more interesting. Right here, we have 2 gradients. One of these is for the wall, the other one for the tower. And you can see how they work together, and they kind of complement each other. They mirror, yeah, all that. So we can see, we start with some oak, and then more oak, birch, sandstone. We start with diorite, white concrete powder, snow. And notice how the shades aren't super close to each other. Of course, you know, meant to be survival friendly, but I don't use powder snow or white wool because those are too similar. I wanted to have some contrast, so I did that. And here's how I do it. The first few blocks, let's say the first 2 blocks of the build, oak, and then we add some above, some below. And then we have oak for the next 2 blocks, and then we have birch, and then anything above the birch is sandstone. Same logic to here. First 4 blocks are diorite, then white concrete, then white concrete powder, then snow. And now we can see how this actually works. And it makes the build look a lot more professional. By the way, I replaced all the mangrove logs with netherrack for cost reasons, and it looks better anyways. And you can see I did exactly what the gradient says to do. We start with some oak, oak planks, then birch, and then beyond a certain point we use predominantly sandstone until up here, just sandstone. Also, I shaved off the edges of the roof because they're just a bit too pointy, and then added some smoothing down here at the bottom level. But yeah, this build looks a lot more professional. Of course, you know, it's meant to be finished, and because it's unfinished, it doesn't look terribly professional. But still, we have the idea behind it. We go inside, nothing really here yet, but the gradient really adds a lot. Also did the ceiling, you can see, divided into segments. It doesn't perfectly correspond to the wall segments because they're different for each side of the build. I'm actually going to adjust that off camera. But we have this big arch here, and we can attach some chains to it. Then lanterns, whatnot. We can also use the attic space. Of course, there's nothing in here actually, but still, we have attic space we can use. Now, with all this build coming together, we do need to come up with a floor plan. It's not going to be one giant room. In here, we could have maybe like a kitchen, some basic utilities. Maybe up here we have a small bedroom inside the attic, or maybe we want that at the top of the tower. Of course, we need enchanting, whatnot, and we also have room for a basement down here, very solid, unplanned. And then we have a trial chambers, which is completely unrelated, but still pretty funny that I managed to conveniently choose that. But we have all the ideas we need. We need some storage, we need some livability, stuff like that. And of course, the beams going across the top. Well lit. And then we can add a ladder in here or a spiral staircase to get to whatever we want at the top. Now, it's interior time, and we do have a few exterior details to talk about first. Because I do this a little bit non-linearly, so that way this thing is prepared as soon as possible, and then you can build the rest of it. First, we have mangrove shelves here, just to add a little bit more depth. And then, let's go over here, and we can see how we can actually mossify this pillar. The foundation, we go from moss to cobblestone to mossy, and then we go to normal. Let's add this around. You can add this to the rest of the foundation if you want as well. And of course, if you have a mossy wall here, potentially you could put a pink candle instead, almost like a flower. And then we have these little shutters here, stuff like that. These can go on windows for whatever. And you can see we have 4 of them here, one for each double tall flower, so that way we can bone meal them and have unlimited dye. So let's go inside, and immediately you can see, of course, this, we're not going to talk about that yet. But on the floor, checkerboard, tough, and diorite. Then the gradient goes up. We have a unique ceiling where we have fences, full block, and we arch like this. Then we have some trapdoors in the middle. And then we have some enchanting here, very basic stuff. And right here, we have a bunch of chiseled bookshelves or whatever enchanted books we need. And of course, you can parkour around in order to reach your double tall flowers. Alternatively, you can just take 4 hearts of fall damage. But let's go over here, and we can see how this tower actually links up into the roof, into our storage room. And this one's pretty cool, because all the chests are only 2 blocks high, and we have a bunch of shelves to display what we need. Behind them, we have torches for a little bit of glow around the shelves. They're birch, by the way. But the thing is, all these chests are this low because we have 2 copper chests here and 2 copper golems. These guys will sort through the entire thing for us. And then we have some carpets, and glowstone is under the orange stuff, of course only on the edges, in order to make sure it's well lit. So all this, it's a self-sorting system. And then we have basic utilities here, nice arch, stuff like that. And then we can go down here, trapdoors, birch shelves in order to add an arch. And we can see we have a shelf here, several of them, and into the main interior. There's a lot to cover here, so let's talk about the simple stuff first. Right here, we have the kitchen. The table in the middle, more of that checkerboard. This time it's a little bit different because we're already using diorite. Then we have furnaces here, some barrels on this really weird whatever. And then we have some pail as a backdrop using shelves. These are not actually functional. Out the window, I smashed it, so that way we can have a little bit of a sweetberry bush. Make sure that there's no blocks connecting to these walls, so that way you're completely safe trying to go on this. Because otherwise, some zombies could crawl in, go through your house, and yeah, that wouldn't be fun coming in and right, there's a creeper. We have a chandelier here, but still talking about the kitchen. Smokers, with some detector rails, some nice paintings. We have nether wart in the corner, a sink, brewing stands, stuff like that. And then we have this shelf here, well, countertop, and we can see just more diorite. A pillar here made of walls and fences, and then across this whole thing we have those beams, I corrected them, and this nice middle part which has a chandelier. These fences here, candles, make sure there's good lighting and a little bit of style. And of course, because there's so much here, I might miss something. Comment down below if you need more ideas or got lost somewhere in the tutorial. I do these a little less conventionally in order to make it more creative freedom, but if you're having trouble, I'm free to help. But we have these windows here, these nice arches above. We can have a pantry, unlit campfires with meats on them, and then some shelves to hold it up. Another table here, notice a cartography table in the middle to make it look like we scattered things. And then we also have room for a basement if we want to. Up here, we have just a miscellaneous shelf, and then here we have curtains, with blue wool replacing part of the walls, and then we have a bunch of banners. A pile of pumpkins, because why not? And then this green and moss carpet going across. And finally, of course, we have these shelves here, but under these carpets is actually powder snow. That way, we don't have to waste as much time on transport. So let's go in survival mode, fall down, nothing happens. So that's why you need some powder snow there. Now you can traverse your base faster. So we have all this going on, and it looks really nice. This tower is going to be completed in just a moment, but now we have to think about the rest of this build. We have the house itself effectively done, minus the bedroom and the tower, but we also need a few extra amenities, like a path going around. We could use maybe some trees, stuff like that. It's a little bit of a barren place right now. It looks like I placed a structure and called it a day. We want to make it look like someone actually lives here. You know how when you live in a survival world for a while, things just pile up. Bad sugarcane farms, complete sugarcane farms, and then you have some animals around, whatever structures, maybe some joke you played with your friend. We want to make sure this feels lived in, so let's do precisely that. Let's include a little bit of an animal pen here. Remember, walls, fences, stripped logs, all that. And let's see what we can do with all this. Right here, we have the little roof on top of the tower, and it looks really cool. I'm deliberately not giving a full zoom out because we have some stuff at the bottom. And right here, we can see at the second window, we have, of course, a little thing, but we also have this arch. We have some fences, stair, shelf, stair, trapdoor, slab. And then we have the arch going around, makes it very shapely. Then we go up to this layer, roughly where the top of the tower was, and we go around in a circle. Then from that circle, I add some pillars in order to hold this up, and we have this bump out ring going around. Then I have these things for the roof. It is not like a simple cone. We have these plates, so we build a little bit here, stair, slab, stair, and then I fill in the corners, instead of wrapping around the stairs completely. This gives it a more realistic shape. So build this, like one segment here, build only the outer layer, and then an outer layer here, then an outer layer here, outer layer. We never want to have the stairs go like this. This looks bad. So now that we have that, let's repair it, and of course make sure that's still accurate to how I originally had it, and we go all the way up until we have a prismarine wall, optional. If you don't have prismarine, you don't have to do prismarine. And then we have some fences holding up a Dutch flag. We can see blue, white, red. I'm just using wool for this. You could use other stuff. And then we have some candles hidden at the top in order to give it some lighting. The flag goes down and waves in the wind, and you can see it looks good from both sides. You'll have to do a little bit of tinkering for that though. Of course, ask if you need more help. Now, let's look at the bottom. Here's where it gets really cool. So I decided that I really needed to make it look lived in. So I promptly did that. Right here, we can see a whole bunch was added, and it really looks like a real homestead. So let's start. From the entrance, we have some coarse dirt and grass paths. This is our path. It winds around, no straight lines. Then, I surrounded it in a bunch of chiseled stone bricks with lanterns on top. We just go back and forth every few blocks. We place them in order to make sure that mobs are less likely to appear on our path. Of course, make sure they're not too close, but still, we have all these lanterns going around. And then, I put some water. I hid some lanterns in the water too. Then, I tilled the area around them, in order to make little wheat fields. Afterwards, I put some piles of oak leaves and put resin clumps on them. So hooray, we have paths going around, and also I have this little hanging lamp. We have a bench here. You can pause to take a look at its exact design. And then right here, we have a very simplistic cow pen based off of our foundation with the candles and all that. Inside, we have some podzol in order to make it look a little like manure. Gross. But still, we have a cow pen. We have a wheelbarrow here with a fence gate. And we have a pile of hay. Notice how some of it is embedded into the ground. And with all this being put together, we have a really nice homestead. So hooray! Now, if we turn it to night, I added some decorational lanterns about to the build, and it's all nicely lit up. You can probably imagine living here, and yeah, it's a pretty cheap starter base. You can't build it in one day, I can assure you of that. But still, with maybe some diamond tools and some minor enchantments, you can really build this, and what do you know? With those paths and the wheat fields, you could really build a kingdom around this. So now, it's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, remember, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. Either way, enjoy the rest of your day. Gearsaw out.